Oh man, I got a lot to say about this interview. I just watched this interview with Monique coming on the Breakfast Club, and I watched it with my wife. And I'm gonna share some thoughts that she said as well. But this interview went all over the place. Um, I already said, if you haven't watched my previous video regarding when Monique first came out and wanted to boycott Netflix because of so-called gender and color bias, all because she received a lowball offer from Netflix, and an offer that she did not agree with, based off her track record, um, and just her resume as a whole in her career. She felt as though she didn't receive the offer that she deserved, which I have no problem with. Monique, you get your money. You get what you think is worth, what you think you're worth. You get what you think you're worth for what you're trying to do. You're trying to do a stand-up special, so you get what you think you're worth, right? I have no problem with that whatsoever. Not one problem. So the interview, this to me, this seemed like an impromptu interview. Like, it just came out of nowhere. There was no build up or anything. But here's the thing, and I'm peeping this situation like this as well, because Monique is in a situation where she said herself, and I've said this in my past video, that Monique has been blackballed from Hollywood. I actually should say whiteballed. Monique has been whiteballed from Hollywood. Okay. And she addressed that in the Breakfast Club interview as well. My whole thing, and I said this before, my whole thing is, if you're preaching about gender bias and racial, what did she say? Gender bias and racial inequality, things of that nature, those things are real. We live in a system of racism, white supremacy. All right. Women, black women specifically, aren't equivalent to black men in terms of the same field. We know this. This is true. That is all true. And even Charlemagne said that himself in the Breakfast Club interview. That is all true. All right. But if you were so concerned about gender bias and color bias, when you really have not been consistent in Hollywood since Precious, which came out damn near 10 years ago. It came out, what, in 2009, 2008? Damn near 10 years ago. You really haven't been consistent in Hollywood. Why weren't you talking about gender bias and racial inequality when you were whiteballed from Hollywood? Why is it a problem now because you received a lowball offer from Netflix? Why all of a sudden now you want to, start a group party, right? You want to start a group party by saying it's gender bias and racial inequality, when in fact that you received a lowball offer from Netflix that you felt that wasn't up to par, your standards in terms of what you're worth. Right? That has nothing to do with gender bias or racial inequality. That is an issue with, it's very simple business dealings. It's, negotiating. Your negotiating tactics need to be up to par. That's what that's about. Okay? Negotiations. So when you say that you received the lowball offer from Netflix, right, for $500,000, and I know there's other reports saying that there were multiple offers that were made and things of that nature, right? You received the lowball offer and you did not accept that offer, right? Which means you weren't happy with it. That is something that affects you specifically. That is something that affects you solely. All right? That's not a gender thing. That's not a solely based off racial inequality. It's not solely based off that, even though that's part of the situation, right? It's an individual, and again, this is something that Charlamagne addressed in the interview, and I'm going to get to the condescending rhetoric that Monique was doing in the interview as well. A very condescending tone, talking to Charlamagne like a child, addressing him by his government name. I'll get to that in a minute, but just to address this part here, you should have, if you're trying to get everybody to join your group party with gender bias and racial inequality, you should have been like that since day one. If you were so-called whiteballed from Hollywood, if you're a whiteball from Hollywood for damn near 10 years, not being able to be casted in specific movies, et cetera, and the only thing that you could really name that was, relevant or recent for you in your career was Almost Christmas, which came out 2 years ago, which you did address in the interview. You addressed Almost Christmas, how it was a budget of $17 million and it grossed $45 million, right? And you compare that to Amy Schumer, who did a movie with the $43 million budget or something like that, and it made $45 million, right? Now, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. When you are whiteballed from Hollywood, right? You have to ask yourself, why were you whiteballed from Hollywood? Why aren't you getting casted in certain movies and getting booked for shows and things of that nature? Why is this happening? Right? And they should have asked that question. Charlamagne, one of those guys, Envy, Angelique, they shouldn't have asked those questions. Why are you whiteballed from Hollywood? Why aren't you getting casted in certain movies as you should? Why aren't you working consistently in Hollywood? Right? And if that's the case, then you should have been on the gender bias and racial inequality thing since day one. You should have been fighting for equality and gender bias since day one. Why did it take Netflix for you to finally say gender bias and racial inequality? And now, and my wife addressed this too. She was like, so you gonna tell me to cancel my Netflix when my children watch Netflix, and you don't tell me to do anything else but cancel Netflix? You don't tell me about any other platforms where I can join that are similar to Netflix. You just tell me to cancel, all because you didn't get paid. You were offered something that you didn't agree with from Netflix. That's what my wife said. That's what my wife said. That's what she said when she watched this interview. But to get to how the interview started, right? She wanted to confront Charlamagne the God because of the fact that Charlamagne gave Monique Donkey of the Day. She kept addressing that. And she wanted direct answers as to why Charlamagne the God gave her Donkey of the Day. And he stated that, why he gave her Donkey of the Day. Because he felt, and I agree, he felt as though that comparing yourself to not only legends, but relevant legends in the comedy game, such as Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock, how are you comparing yourself to those guys when they're selling out arenas and stadiums and venues and putting in the work before they even were, confronted with the multi-million-dollar deal from Netflix? They've been selling out venues for quite some time, and you only doing these chitlin circuit shows, these independent small venues, right? That's what you're doing. And you want to put yourself in that particular category with Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock. You know, and that's what Charlamagne was saying. But also, what really ticked me off, and I was really heated. My wife can attest, I was heated in certain points of the interview. I was heated. She kept trying to call out Charlamagne the God's real government name as, now, she first said, she tried to call Charlamagne his real name. She said Leonard. Charlamagne the God corrected her by saying, no, it's Leonard. And then after that, she kept saying Leonard during the interview and trying to chastise him, a grown man, and trying to say, I want answers regarding why you called me donkey of the day. Then she had the nerve to say, well, Leonard, your mother's still alive, right? Would you call your mother a donkey? That right there ticked me the hell off. Okay, that right there. And she is trying to, again, she's trying to invite people to her party that don't want to be invited. Right? She's throwing out false narratives regarding gender bias and fighting for equality when in fact this has nothing to do but anything but yourself, Monique. You just aren't satisfied with the offer that Netflix gave you, and you're upset. Okay? You seem to be more upset at the offer Netflix gave you versus you being whiteballed from Hollywood, and you have not been relevant in Hollywood for damn near a decade. You do a movie once in every 5 years, right? If that. The last movie you did was Almost Christmas, which was 2 years ago. And the people that work with you, Will Packer, Lee Daniels, etc., anybody that's worked with you in the past have negative things to say about you. Right? And the husband, the husband is like, she kept referring to her husband as daddy, and he sounded like the manager / lawyer / spokesperson for Monique. He was trying to justify and make these damn talking points and stuff like that regarding her work and her credentials. It was one question that, or actually a multitude of questions that Angela Yee brought up, and they're very good questions. She was talking about people that Monique worked with and how the people that she worked with in the past have negative comments to say about her, and that she is, basically a disaster to work with. And things of that nature. And her husband, Sidney, was trying to paint a picture. Well, they're not talking about how Gabby Sidibe, where they flew her out to Cannes Film Festival in coach, and Monique said, you guys shouldn't be doing that. She needs to fly first class. Right? That was hilarious. Then he said something about, and I'm paraphrasing, excuse me, I'm not saying this in verbatim, but I'm paraphrasing. Sydney says something about, there were some negative comments that people who work with Monique said about her and how she's, terrible and hard to deal with and work with. Well, I need to talk to that person face to face and find out why that happened. I mean, you listen. Sydney, her husband, aka Daddy, is trying to paint this picture about, she's doing all these good things that nobody's talking about. But again, this is consistent. A whole lot of people don't like to work with Monique. Okay? A whole lot of people don't like Monique, which is why she said herself, she is whiteballed from Hollywood. Okay, if you're whiteballed from Hollywood and not able to get work in Hollywood, you got to ask yourself why. right? You got to ask yourself why this is happening. Is it racial inequality? Is it gender bias? If so, I didn't hear you say nothing about that when you were whiteball from Hollywood. You now are on that racial and gender bias thing now because Netflix did not give you the deal that you wanted. And Charlamagne also brought up some good points about, did you have any other offers on the table outside of Netflix? She was tap dancing and she was break dancing through those questions, did not answer those questions at all. Did not answer none of her or Sydney, aka Daddy, did not answer those questions. Did not answer those questions whatsoever. All right. And like I said, Monique, get your money. Okay, get your money. Get the money that you feel you deserve. But don't make this a group party where you think that it has something to do with a group of women, of black women in the comedy realm, right? Not getting the offers they deserve on Netflix. That's you specifically. There are more serious issues that are dealing with racial inequality and gender bias that are way bigger than a Netflix deal that you did not agree with. Way bigger, way more important. All right. There was another part of the interview where I think it was Angela Yee that brought up a good another question. She asked Monique a question, and Monique tried to bring up Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, it was the question about people working with her in the past, and there was an interview with not an interview, but actually a back and forth comments with Roland Martin last month, saying that there were people who did a photo shoot at Ebony magazine. As you can see here, this is what Roland Martin said: "I don't waste my time in silly tit for tats, but Monique, you're gonna have to own up to your stuff if you want others to. That Ebony mag cover you were on with Chris Rock and I Am Steve Harvey, I conceived that issue. I was told the photo shoot was horror because of you." Right? And that's the same question that Angela Yee brought up in terms of people working with her in a photo shoot and stuff like that. Then she tried to flip it and say, Harvey Weinstein, right? Well, how come Harvey Weinstein, and I'm paraphrasing, she was saying that, and I was like, man, is she trying to compare herself to Harvey Weinstein? Really? But the point that she was trying to make was the fact that people aren't coming out, right, to speak highly of her. And she tried to compare herself to somebody like Harvey Weinstein in the Me Too movement. When, of course, the Harvey Weinstein incident, there were serious issues regarding sexual abuse, etc., with Harvey Weinstein. Right? That was a terrible, that was beyond terrible. Terrible comparison. But what just really ticked me off about the interview, family, is just her condescending tone, talking to Charlamagne, calling this man Leonard when his name is Leonard. Charlamagne corrected you and says, "No, my name is Leonard." That's what he said. She had the nerve to say, "Well, brother, you need to stop assuming and do your research." And I said, Monique, you didn't do your research because you keep calling Charlamagne the God Leonard when his name is Leonard, and he had to correct you and say, "No, my name is Leonard." You didn't do your own research. So how you gonna come on here and talk about he got to do his research when you don't do your own research about the people you are looking for answers and trying to confront and be confrontational about him calling you donkey of the day when that's a part of his show. That's what he does. That's a part of his shtick with the Breakfast Club. He calls out anybody he feels donkey of the day on a daily basis. But you're the only one that will confront this man about donkey of the day and then trying to flip it and bounce it and say, oh, he doesn't represent, he doesn't like black women. I mean, that's ridiculous. You want to turn it to he don't like black women movement and anti-black woman and anti-equality and all this stuff. Well, no, you cannot flip that. You can't do that. This is about you not getting the deal that you deserve, that you think you deserve. That's it. Point blank and simple. You weren't satisfied with the Netflix offer. Apparently, you were satisfied by being whiteballed from Hollywood because we haven't heard really you call out Hollywood at all. Because you have not been working consistently and being casted in movies and TV shows, etc. And the only way for you to garner up attention at this day and age in your career is by doing these kind of interviews. And it seems to me that you have to beg for these interviews. Nobody's asking for you to come on their show. You got to ask for them to book you on their show. You are less relevant. You are not as relevant as a Chris Rock or a Dave Chappelle. You're just not. That's why you got those kind of offers. Coupled with the fact that nobody likes to work with you. Coupled with the fact that you're whiteball from Hollywood. It's just that simple. So, I mean, the interview, like I said, I just got done watching it. I watched with my wife. My wife and I do agree that this has nothing to do with racial and gender inequality regarding this situation for Monique. This situation for Monique is an individual thing, and I agree with Charlemagne. This is an individual person who is not happy with the offer she received from another platform that's white owned, which is Netflix. Instead of you promoting black independent businesses, right? Instead of you promoting entrepreneurship, you want to play the victim role about racial and gender bias or racial and gender inequality. When this situation has really nothing to do with that. It's an individual situation about you not getting the money that you think you deserve. It's just that simple. And Charlemagne was trying to keep it on metrics and numbers. Like he was saying, basically, what makes you think you deserve this amount of money versus Amy Schumer? And when I mentioned in my first video, when I was addressing this Netflix boycott thing, I said, I never heard of no Amy Schumer. I know who she is now, but I've never seen her shows. I've never seen her movies. I know that she is a comedic actor or a comedian. That's what I know now. But when I first heard of her name, I never heard of her, period. But Amy Schumer is a comedic actor and / comedian. And that's what I know about her. Right now, I have not watched none of her shows or TV shows or nothing like that. I couldn't tell you what movie she was in or what TV show she was on. I couldn't tell you. Could not tell you. So, yeah, as you can see, this video just came out today. It's number one trending on YouTube right now. I just got done watching this, man, and this is what it comes down to. She is less relevant. She ain't popping. Monique is not popping. And the only way for her name to stay relevant is doing impromptu interviews like this. Being confrontational, talking condescending to a person you disagree with. That's how you get down. That's how you get down. So, again, it's a lot of You just gotta watch. If you haven't watched this interview, watch the interview, man, and see for yourself. And if you already seen the interview, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section about this interview. Do you agree with Monique? Do you agree with Charlamagne? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section, family. All right. Until next time, family, Chauncey, a.k.a. the Black Separatist, signing out. Peace.